athletics. James, how did this project come about, and tell us about it?
Sure. I think I'm kind of preaching to the room here where I talk about the challenges and stress of working in healthcare and medicine. We've already heard from so many people today who've talked about the struggles and how we combat it and fantastic initiatives that people are putting in place. And I think that goes to medical students as well. We have a lot of stress with placements, seeing things that other students wouldn't see, dealing with loss, dealing with stress and anxiety, having things change during the pandemic when you're sent home for an unforeseeable period. And I think recognising that, a friend and colleague of mine who was a UCL medical student at the time, James Groves, created this programme to try and introduce mindfulness to medical students. For those who are unaware, I think it's a much more growing term now, but mindfulness is sort of the practice of taking time for yourself each day just to being a bit more in tune with your current thoughts and being present in the moment. And I think doing that every day helps you sort of get used to things and understand how your mind is dealing with challenges and coping with emotions. And it's not to stop you from having those. You can't suddenly stop yourself from having a challenging time. But I think just being aware of it and understanding why it's coming about really helps me handle that. So we created this sort of platform that we put on the UCL sort of e-learning sort of thing. And it was there happily for a year or two, and then the pandemic kicked in, and we thought, okay, students are sent home. We don't have this face-to-face connections anymore. People are struggling with this uncertainty. Why not roll it out on a big way? So we applied for funding from the Society of Medical Education, got £1,200, and used it to sort of fund a study in medical students from years 1 to 6, getting to use the platform over the months during the pandemic and see how it affected people's stress and wellbeing scores.
And what did it show?
It was really, really encouraging, actually. I think people sort of on the whole, there was 90 people we hired, 90 volunteers. Can't say hired, that's really bad. 90 volunteers who took it throughout the 3-month period from years 1 to 6, people who were working on ITU at the Whittington, so people seeing things they're not used to seeing. And the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. So we used the sort of validated stress and wellbeing scores, and just in 1 month we saw that they both improved, and it was sustained up to the 3-month period. And then just written feedback that we had from students saying that, they found the pandemic so isolating, but just having this person guiding through recordings and connecting with other people going through the same program really made them feel like, even though they were by themselves in a room, they were part of something else. People were talking about how they were sleeping more, sort of being a bit more in tune of things. And yeah, that it's 2 years on now, really. And people are still doing it regularly. And I see people and they're like, oh, thanks for this. I'm still doing this every day. And that's really lovely to receive that sort of feedback. Yeah.
That's great. And how do you think you'll sort of take this forward? And what have you learned from this project? I've written down here, now we're reaching the end of the pandemic, which is like, doesn't feel like that with every other person having COVID.
No, but indeed. I mean, the stress is always going to be there, right? Regardless of whether there's a pandemic or no pandemic, it's going to be a huge challenge for us working in the NHS and dealing with the stress that we have to. So I think having something that's so accessible and sort of showing and introducing people to this thing where you can just take some time for yourself every day, it's certainly something that's been really useful for me. I remember when I first started mindfulness, looking back and thinking, oh, I didn't do that very well, or my mind was wandering a lot, and having this sort of goals-orientated view of things that I have for most of the day. And then I was speaking to my friend who set it up, and he said, look, this is your half an hour every day where whatever happens, it doesn't matter. Whether you focus the whole time or whether your mind was wandering, it's just time for you. And that's been something that I've really, really treasured having over the last few years.
Okay, James, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Oh, there's your badge.
Thank you.
Thank you.